we've got right now Deven Choksi, Managing Director at DR Choksi Investment, and Avinash Korakshakar, Director Research at Profit Mart Securities, to just give us a sense and a guide for our viewers on how to pick the right IPO among all the options you have. So we'll show you those graphics on our screens. Kross, Tolins Tyres, Bajaj Housing Finance, all of them out this week. Deven, let me start with you on which ones you would pick. Do you have a favorite ranking? Which ones do you think are worth applying to?
Good morning. Well, Bajaj Housing Finance clearly is a lottery. I think it's a stock which one should be owning in the portfolio. Important point, a pure focus housing finance company with variety of customer segments covered. I think be it loan against property, be it developers finance, be it mortgage finance, or be it rental discounting, and both, I think, for the prime sector housing as well as for the affordable sector housing. The business of the company is spread across. So 2-3 things comes out very clearly. On one side, India has a long headroom, long runway as far as the penetration of the housing is concerned. Today, we are just sub 10% of penetration. I think which could possibly grow as high as 60%, I think, in the mortgage lending business. So from the population, I mean to say. So from that perspective too, I think the runway is quite long, and anybody, I think, with a sizable, the better approach, I think, would definitely have the business to talk about. Bajaj Housing Finance, I think they have particularly set their meter right. I think they are growing the book at the rate of compounded rate of around 30%. Now, when you grow 30% compounded rate, every 3 years, you're growing the size to double. And that's where probably I think the business of the company remains more sure. We have seen the companies in past, wherever they have, I think, disciplined way of their producing the growth, they have actually produced enormous wealth for the investors. So from that perspective too, I think this model looks, I think, appealing to me. So on one side, business dynamics, definitely working good for them. Bajaj pedigree, giving them a good way to access the fund at a cheaper cost. On the other side, I think lending money.
But the problem is you started this sentence by saying it's a lottery. So it's all amazing, but you know, you're saying it's a lottery to actually get allotment. So then in which IPO this week do you have a better chance? Let me frame it that way, because you have PN Gadgil, you have Kross, you have Tolins. So should people look at some of the other options?
So Bajaj Housing Finance, I'll say lottery, because I think here you are not going to get enough amount of allotment possibilities because of the rush. So even if you end up getting one, I think it's a lottery going to be for you. So certainly, I think preference would be with Bajaj Finance. The other two companies, the Kross and Tolins Tyres, both these companies are basically catering to the commercial vehicle segment as well as the off-road segment and the tractor segment in particular. Kross is basically more on the engineering side of the business, whereas Tolins Tyres is largely on the tire side of the business, but catering to the same sector. So certainly, I think there is a growth involved in it, but compared to the size is smaller. They're relatively, I think, the smaller companies. So obviously, some traders delight, momentum traders delight, as far as I think those kind of things are concerned. They are attractively marketed to at around 34% or 34 times price earning ratio, both these companies. So from that perspective, they are not expensively priced, and the CAGR growth in last 3 years has been smart for both these companies. So obviously, I think the momentum traders would probably find some merit in those two companies. Bajaj Finance, definitely, I think long-term investors delight as far as the portfolio choice is concerned.
Avinash well joins in with a view on some of these very hot IPOs. Avinash, what's the verdict on Bajaj Housing Finance? I believe the grey market premium is also indicating to an 80% premium already on this housing finance company. If one doesn't get an allocation to this in the IPO, do you recommend buying it on listing day, even if there's a 50 to 60% upside? And the reason I ask this is because while the fundamentals are solid, it's still a very expensive stock.
Yeah, I think, good morning, Samina. See, my guess is that this is an issue which is coming from the Bajaj Group after a very long time. And I think the Bajaj Group has rewarded investors quite handsomely. Valuations apart, I think, this company has got a great future. The runway for housing finance in India is extremely large. And I think Bajaj Housing is the second largest housing finance company. And with the kind of funding they get it, I'm quite sure that in the next say 2 to 3 years, they should be doing a very large kind of AUM book and with a very impeccable asset quality. So I think your question whether one should buy the stock on listing because obviously this issue will get heavily oversubscribed. Yes, I think if you've got the next 2 to 3 years in mind, this is a stock which has got to be kept in your portfolio. Please don't miss it. But you need to give in that much time because obviously when you buy a stock at 50-60% premium, obviously you're buying at an elevated level. But I think growth prospects seem to be quite solid. And I would not be surprised that over the next say 12 to 18 months, based on the kind of news flows the company announces, the performances the company delivers, the investors could still make a good amount of money. But I think over the next say 2 to 3 years, it's a portfolio stock. One should definitely stay invested.
Okay, let's talk about the others as well. And we briefly spoken about it, but Kross, and I want a view from both. But Avinash, I'll start with you first. The CAGR performance, in fact, I was looking at a note from Deven Choksi Research. 44% CAGR for the last 2 years, remarkable ROCs for an auto anch. Is it expensive though, or is it something that you would subscribe to? Avinash, the question is to you.
I think, Neeraj, if you look at the longer term picture, they are into basically suspension trailers, machined components. And I think this is a very, high end engineering kind of business. So I think despite the fact that the stock may appear a little expensive, if one were to take the next 2 years and see the kind of growth opportunity, then I think clearly, they've done a top line of 620 crores, a bottom line of around 45 crores. And as you said, the CAGR is almost 40-45%. So I think, if they continue to maintain this growth rate, then I think the markets could definitely be rewarded. And I would not be surprised that this issue could get a solid response considering the fact that this is a very high entry business. It takes a lot of time to become a well-established vendor. So, machining is a very high-end activity. So yes, from a longer term perspective, yes, even from a listing gain point of view, there could be a reasonable listing gain also for this stock.
And Deven, good morning. Lovely note by the way on Kross. I'm just trying to understand. So listing gain notwithstanding, and let's assume that the listing gain happens as Avinash is saying. What about post that? Is this a company that you would keep in your portfolio, or are the other listed auto anchs giving you a better opportunity? Kross, that is.
Yeah, and Neeraj, good morning. Well, I think definitely other auto anchs are there in the portfolios, but the fact remains that I think this company is getting more amount of prominence. 2 or 3 reasons. Government is increasingly spending higher amount of money on the agriculture and agriculture related activities. So obviously, I think the sector in which they are present is largely the tractor, the farm equipment side of the activity, wherein I think the majority of the machine components are going into. So that is one area where we are reasonably sure about, I think, the kind of demand scenario getting generated. In fact, in last 2 years' time, if you see this particular growth, it gets validated that because of the larger emphasis of the government, I think this kind of companies which are up till now sleeping, I think they have started suddenly waking up because of kind of business they started attracting into. And I think given the kind of pedigree for a longer period of time that they are enjoying, I believe that I think the market is ready for the products I think which they are supplying to different OEMs as well. So from that perspective, we remain reasonably confident about the growth, at least if not more for next 3 years. And that's where probably I would like to think that such kind of companies which are relatively missing in the marketplace, I think they would probably find the presence. The off-road vehicle markets, the tractor, the farm equipment markets, they are the ones I think which are niche markets, and they're comparatively the margins remain relatively better as compared to I think the other peers. So to an extent, I think they should be performing better going forward. And as we have seen the improvements in efficiency, we believe that the margins are likely to remain a little bit on a higher side. Given the lower raw material cost advantage that they are now getting, is also going to be another factor which should be giving sufficiently good clarity for next 2 years on the margin front for this company.
Just Avinash, your view on Tolins as well. Tolins is the other one that opens today. Are you excited about it?
No, Tamanna, in fact, this is a company which is largely a tire trading company. 75% comes from tire trading business. And basically the USP for the company is that, it's situated in Kerala. They've got 3 facilities. So I think raw material problem is not there. And I think I was just seeing the numbers on a top line of 227 crores. They've generated a PAT of 26 crores, which is quite attractive. So I think, if the company is able to maintain these kind of margins and continue its business model, because tire retreading is essentially a very solid business, very few players in the market apart from LG, which is a market leader here. So, in terms of valuations, the stock appears to be fully priced. But yes, if the company can generate a decent ROE and a kind of see a good performance going forward, then I think this issue would definitely get a decent kind of response. Most importantly, crude prices have started correcting. So I think that also should add to their margin. So we have given a subscribe to this issue for our investors, but yes, from a slightly longer term horizon.
Okay, Deven, about 50 seconds left for Gala Precision to list. Any thoughts on this one, the new listing today?
Honestly, Neeraj, I think haven't looked into very detail about this company, so probably I think take another chance to talk to you
Fair call.
later.
Yeah, sure. Avinash, quick, same question to you. 40 seconds left. Anything on Gala?
I think, looking at the response the IPO got, I think one should easily expect a 50 to 60% kind of premium on listing. The company has done remarkably well, and I think the issue has subscribed significantly well. So I think at least expect a 50 to 60% pop up on listing, and thereafter I think we'll have to see which are the marquee investors who actually buy on the first day. But yes, fundamentally company appears to be on a strong wicket.
Okay, okay. Gentlemen, both of you, thank you so much for agreeing on a short notice to talk to us on the most active things here in markets currently, which is IPOs.